Good evening. Welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have Erik Tunison on from Die Kreuzen. How you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Hello.
Good. Okay. First time with a mess up, but we're back on. I want to cover some of the bands you've been in, but obviously, the main band, Die Kreuzen, has probably been one of the, I don't know, under the current bands as far as its influence, especially a big part of alternative rock and but just different levels of rock through the years. And if you know your music, Die Kreuzen. But I don't think there's a full appreciation of the band, especially as time goes on. So hopefully we can bring more of an awareness.
Okay, I'll
Um,
do my best.
that's all I ask for you, right? Like your parents, just do your best. So first off, you guys started in Milwaukee. So actually being from Milwaukee, and then being in Amsterdam is quite a difference there. Uh, the band started in '81, right? Around '81,
Yeah, 81.
sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pick up from there. Actually, just if you just a tiny bio so that people can be aware before we start, you know,
Well,
talking a little bit about the band.
the band was called the Stellas, and they were looking for a drummer. And my good friend from the third grade, Keith Bramer, suggested me to them, and I played with them for a little while. And then when it was time for the Stellas to need a bass player, well, I just recommended my good friend Keith, and so we joined. We played out for a while as the Stellas, and then decided that we were heading into a new realm, turning into a different band, and it deserved a different name. So casting about, we found for some reason a name from Germany, Die Kreuzen, the crossing, the crosses, the crossing.
Which is a great name.
Yeah, we did that. So by like winter of 81, beginning of 82, we were called Die Kreuzen. We were playing a lot of shows. Did some shows in Chicago, traveled around a little bit. Corey Rusk was playing with the Necros at the time, and so we met Corey, and he invited us to be on his record label, and it seemed like an excellent idea. So suddenly we felt like we'd hit the big time. We were recording our first album.
It's awesome. That was Touch and Go, right?
That is Touch and Go Records. Yep.
They did some really good stuff too, though. Another underrated.
Oh man, we're really lucky. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's something to be proud of. What's great about you guys is, and you probably didn't know at the time, you guys had, I like to say, there's a lot of artists I talk to me always feel that special lightning in a bottle, like, and it feels like it's an overused term, but everything is sincere on this show. That
Hmm.
the creativity I don't think there was a full plan for you guys. You guys evolved in your sounds. It's almost like you guys have a new band name every single album. You evolve so much.
Well, we definitely felt that way even by the time we recorded that first album, we were a little moving on from the play as fast as you can and be this incredible hardcore band. We already were
Right.
writing songs for our next album, and we really felt like we were making a statement. Okay, this is where we are. This is what we've done. Now let's move on. Uh, we
Yeah.
we really liked records, bands that did exactly that, move on from one album to the other. The Cure, especially, if you remember the Cure
Mhm.
from the early
I do.
days, especially the early days when
Oh
they
yeah.
moved on from their pornography was just came out of nowhere. That record just had such a distinct sound, and it really didn't have much to do with the previous stuff, and we just loved that.
Well,
So that's
that's
what
great about you guys. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So just that's what we were trying to do, is make a new statement basically with every song. Now the albums didn't necessarily have an overarching theme ever. It was just, let's write this song, and then let's write that song, and in many ways it was okay. Now we've got enough songs for an album. Let's do an album.
Now, what's interesting is on that note is some bands will come out and be like kind of a punky rock band and it'll evolve into like a rock band. That was a big thing. Like, almost like they feel like they're getting better in their instruments. But that's not the case for you guys. You guys were good, but you guys just almost moved and evolved into different genres. It wasn't about change. It was more of a changing, malleable sound. It wasn't as much of a trying to up your game. Like, you know what I mean? Like some bands start as a punkers and they get better. You guys
Mhm.
were already good, but you guys just were always growing. Now, do you guys have a lot of different influences that were always creeping into the band, or?
Well, sure. We put a lot of different things together. At the beginning, it certainly was sort of a, let's be a hardcore band, but I was listening to early art rock. Keith was listening to art rock, and Iggy. Whenever anybody claims to be the first guy who was into punk rock in high school, man, let me tell you, Keith was there
Was
at the
he?
beginning. Yeah, he really was. Um, Dan and Brian were into all sorts of different things. Sparks was a real meeting point for Dan and Keith and Brian. I got to admit, I didn't know much about Sparks when we started, but I was listening to Vandergraaf Generator.
Oh, nice.
Just brought us, you know, a whole mix of things together.
And those are some great bands. So people listening, if you haven't heard of them, please go back out and listen to them. Make sure you know if any bands we can mention in the show, check them out because those are yeah, you gotta follow the very back to the beginning. Um, do you see some of the influence that you guys have had, the sounds that you guys have, or even just not? It doesn't sound like an ego thing, but like the sounds you had created, maybe also like 10 years later or whatever. Also, it's like you hear it in grunge or shoegaze, like you're like, I kind of know that sound. I was kind of really doing that sound 10 years ago. I'm not saying it was a rip off, but I mean the influence.
Well, that's really hard to say. That's for other people to say.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry about that. No, just as an artist, you're like, I kind of know that sound because I was kind of doing that myself.
Well,
Have
there
a
was just so much floating around, both in our hometown and all over the world then, and continued. Yeah. We really feel like we were lucky. We were right there in the middle of things that were happening. Yeah.
what's also really good that people don't know you is because just either you have hardcore fans or people just don't know who you guys are. It's really that's the way I've always seen it. I don't know if you've seen it too. Like, there's no middle ground as far as like knowing your influence. You have hardcore fans though, and they know. But people that don't know, your producer was Butch Vig, who did doing like everyone mostly know Nirvana and stuff. But he's spoken so highly of you guys from the very beginning and still does of
we
your
were
influence.
we were
And
so lucky to have Butch on our side, and not only Butch, but a lot of great producers in Milwaukee that people haven't really heard of. A guy named Bill Stace did a lot of work for us. We did some work down with Steve Albini before he opened his bigger studio at his.
oh, really? What do you do with him? Which
Well, that was
albums?
some
Really?
pre-production that we did. So those demos are floating around somewhere.
Because he has his
Uh,
own sound too. How did his sound work with you guys? Because he does have his own little touch. Or he does more now, I think.
um, he didn't try and layer a sound on us, but of course,
Okay.
neither did Butch. It's very much let's record you guys, sit down. We always showed up really ready to play too, so there
Oh,
was
good.
never, well, we had no money, so there's no time to rehearse in the studio. So show up ready to go. But yeah, we were really lucky. Butch was working with everybody in the Midwest, and then eventually everyone all over the world. But
Right.
lucky to get in with him, and he liked us, and yeah, we are so lucky to have. Yeah, what a thing! What a thing for Butch, though.
All right. I mean, could you tell me a little bit about the scene though? Because like, where did you fit in? Because obviously, I wasn't there the time in Milwaukee when you guys were starting out and playing those couple of years, and during the time because you did switch and change sounds. Was the audience going with you? Because I know during certain crowds can be very niche oriented, and you guys are changing your sounds. Did you gain fans, lose fans? Did they follow you? You
Well,
know what I'm saying?
a certain measure of all of that. Yeah, some people did not appreciate the new direction, or the new direction after that, or the new direction after that. So that was challenging, but lots of people stuck around. It seemed like we had a lot of people that were willing to stick around and see what we were doing next. We did. It was a little difficult because, of course, we would write new songs. We'd record an album. 7 or 8 months later, the album had come out, and we would already have a bunch of new songs that we were playing live. So, well, play the stuff off the new album. Yeah, well, we'd love to, but we're a little sick of that. Let's move on. So we could have benefited a little bit from a more intelligent approach about that, but it was just all about writing the songs and playing the new songs.
I agree. You probably could have been more commercial if you kind of stuck to it, but I think you guys would have not. You guys would have, I don't know, failed on the creative level because you guys were like a rocket ship of just creativity at that point, and If you had a game plan and try to be a commercial thing, it just would have.
We didn't have a game plan, and we
Right.
weren't
That's what I'm saying.
trying to be
I'm saying
commercial.
if you
Absolutely.
tried to follow these
Yeah.
rules of building an audience and being like the same album, and it would have stifled all these great albums that are just.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, I'm satisfied with what we did. Yeah, we could have found a more commercial way to do it, but I wouldn't be as satisfied with it as I am now.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, generationally, people that our age and back know that when you go to clubs, it was different. I mean, now you can be a fan of everything and listen to anything and find it everywhere. So the crowd base is a little bit different. But back when you guys first started out, it was definitely just go to shows or word of mouth or small record labels or tape trading or small fanzines to really kind of get you out there. So
Well, we also were really lucky and inspired by how what a music scene Milwaukee had, and probably still does, although I don't live there anymore. But there were clubs, there were bands, there was an audience, there was just a great
can
audience, people that would
we
come and
touch on
see
that for
the
a minute?
shows. I'm
Like
sorry.
the audience, can we talk about some of the bands and just the crowds there? Because I never got to experience that Milwaukee. Like,
Well, one unheralded band was called the Tense Experts. They were very moody and cool and dark, and man, it was just wonderful to see them. They just seemed to come right out of the box, fully formed. Just such a great band, but they never got the recognition that they deserved. And man, now I should have taken notes. Now it's been
ah,
20,
I'm sorry,
30,
I'm
40
sorry.
years later.
No, it just to me, we get sidetracked sometimes on some other really great little hidden gems and touching on the scene of music because it's never going to be that like that anymore. That itself was its own hidden gem, and these pockets of these great clubs and these great shows and these bands that only a special group of people get to hear. Unfortunately, that emit such talent, or the fact you can go to a club and see 3, 4, 5 times a week, see a great different band.
We were really
Those are
lucky to
times.
have that. Yeah, yeah. Part of it was perhaps our proximity to and being in between Chicago and Minneapolis. So bands would play Chicago, they would come up to Milwaukee. So there we are seeing these great bands in these pretty tiny little clubs. Loads of fun. And many of them we got to open for. Gun Club on their first tour, The Damned early on, Black Flag early on, well, their first tour. All of these great bands came through. And there we were. If not playing with them, cheering them on.
I would imagine all those bands are too because of the type of music that the audience was very open for you guys being an open act or vice versa because it was much more of a I think open-minded crowd of music of fans.
It was very, very open minded. Yeah, things were just happening and everybody wanted to see it and take part. Uh,
I mean, because the Damned and Big Black were not on the radio; they were bands I'd listened to, but they were things you heard on a cassette in your friend's car, just like I heard you guys in it. Because I mean, I met my buddy in his Camaro. Pop, you guys got to you got to hear these guys, you know. And that's how I heard a lot of those bands because you hear them with your friends and you don't hear them on the radio. So I would imagine that's already like a unity of those type of bands because they're already on the outside. They're not on the pop world. So
Well, they sure weren't part of the pop world. Yeah. And it was, well, as you recall, sort of a secret. Here's this great band that nobody else has heard of. Check it out. Man, they're great. Yeah. Listen to this Adolescence record. Listen to this Channel 3 record. Listen to these Cure albums. Listen to Susie and the Banshees. It was
so many good
just this
albums.
tidal wave, just this tidal wave. It was great. Wonderful to be a part of.
And the evolution of the songwriting. When you guys were writing songs, and I love talking about songwriting because it's so different nowadays. You're not in your bedroom on Instagram writing a song, which is great. It's how the world is, and we're on COVID. But luckily, through Zoom, you and I can talk. This is
Yeah,
you're in
here we
Amsterdam. I
are.
mean, so there are advantages to technology. You know what I mean? Totally. But you can't take away the fact that the creativity of you four guys, whatever, at the time, got to keep evolving your sound. That's not going to happen by sending MP3s back and forth. You know, the songwriting
It,
process for you guys.
the songwriting process was really just put people in the room and write songs. Here's this riff that, I mean, we did do some rehearsals on our own individually, but hey, here's this riff I've been working on. Let's work it out, and maybe that part goes good with this part, or maybe that part has inspired this part. But yeah, you can't replace putting a handful of people in a room together and seeing what comes out.
When you guys were writing though, did the process, how was it like? Was it kind of bumpy and push pull? Like, cause some bands they really like to fight tooth and nail, and then they come up with this great song, but it's like, or were you guys all like, yeah, like I dig that, and kind of more of a flow, or because the album is so
Well,
dynamic.
well, we always like to call it organic. Things would develop. I mean, we didn't fight about things or anything like that, but we they all took a while to craft. It seems as if, I mean, I remember noticing that we were coming up with about a song a month, which is, I wish we could have written songs quicker, but they ended up being, pretty well crafted.
Well, that's a pretty good average. If you Some songwriters can't do anything for like years, and they come up with 10 good ones. You know what I'm saying? And some just like you're like, would you stop? I think while I was talking to you, you wrote three more songs, and they're good. You know. So I think a month is good for something that still today stands a legacy. I mean, and the short periods of when you guys started writing and releasing, it was a short period of time, considerably for the sound to change and do it so well.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, we rehearsed all the time. We were a couple, 3 or 4 times a week. You know, for years. So we had plenty of time to make it work out together, and then play it live and see what works out live. And yeah, I really that worked out well for us.
we're going to touch on. I know you guys did some other stuff too. I want to get some moving forward, but so when you guys are playing a lot, and I'm sure your management or you guys are trying to get a little more prolific and get put out there more. Obviously, you want to get a little bigger, but still do your own thing. Was it the challenge that they didn't know where to do with you, like where to put you, because you guys were kind of really ahead of your time?
There were challenges as to what to do with us. Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, audiences, like I said, we would play the new material just as the old material was getting released. So sometimes audiences would be challenged, and other times it would work out great. Play in front of hundreds of people who haven't heard these songs before and have them respond really well.
Because you would have killed on like a Lollapalooza back, or those when those bands are out doing things, you guys would have crushed it. You know,
That would have been fun. That would have
you
been
know.
fun. Yeah.
So towards the end, you guys kind of started to dissolve, and I'm not looking for dirt or anything. And then you kind of did your own thing, and you guys kind of broke up a little bit, and each guys kind of stayed together. But you guys did some side bands too, and other you evolved into your own bands. At that point, were you guys still kind of keeping in touch loosely, everybody, and was the band totally like everyone's just done or just taking a break? Or
No, I mean, we remain friends to this day. I don't see
first off, the most
people as,
awesome thing in the world, you guys. I love when bands are still together and friends. I mean, that's the most important.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we were all good friends. We broke up after 12 years, and I got to say, 12 years is a pretty good run.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we stayed friends in Milwaukee. One of the bands that I played with, that Keith played with, that Dan played with, was this collective called Fuckface, put together by a guy in Milwaukee, Dave Shawinski.
I'm sure that wasn't hard to put on a flyer or on an album.
or
We
or
just
or
call it "Make Love Face."
and my grandmother would call them Fun Face, yes, or Naughty Face, or
I love your
but
grandma. That is so awesome for to confront it like that.
my grandma was pretty awesome.
It's awesome. Fun face. I love that.
That was this interesting collective. At a certain point, had 4 drummers playing no snare drums or no cymbals, just this big collective of drummers, and then guitar and bass and metal percussion, and Dave Shawinski doing vocals. It's a really heavy thing. Yeah, that was quite a band. If you look that up, not too easy to Google that band, I can tell you.
Well,
But
I knew of them, but I hadn't heard them. I know you did like Killdozer, I think, right? And then you did a bunch of other good
Kill.
bands too.
There was I played for a while with Killdozer. I played for a while with a guy out of Kentucky, Paul K and the Weathermen. Played on some of his records. Was lucky enough to tour with him for a while. Some bands that barely left Milwaukee, which was a bit of a pity. This one band, D minus, was really, really good. I'm not even sure I have recordings of that. One thing I did that was interesting over here, I was invited by a friend named Robert Smith, working under his title Sick Boy, and it's dance music. And I sat in for an afternoon and put down some drum licks in a rehearsal space, and then Big John from the Exploited put guitar parts down, and then Robert crafted it into a song and shipped it off over the internet to Steve Aoki, the dance
Oh,
music
wow.
impresario, and that
Oh,
ended up
yeah.
on one of his albums. And
Really?
that
I'll have
got a
to look
little
that
bit
one
of,
up.
that one's pretty cool. That's called The Kids Will Have Their Say, and they got a little traction. They flew us to LA and we shot a video. And then his the CD that was on got nominated for a Grammy,
Look at
which
you.
was kind of a big deal for a guy like me.
Well, it's good you get some because clearly you don't just play drums. I mean, you're always creating and moving forward with the instrument. So to get that kind of recognition is very important, especially for a musician. You're not just a drummer, you know. It's
Okay.
it's important because some people just play drums.
Uh,
You know what I mean? You're always pushing the envelope and not going that certain popular music way. You're going with your heart.
I was always going with my heart, absolutely, and so was everybody else in Die Kreuzen, and
Right.
really everybody else I worked with, everyone I worked with. Yeah,
But
yeah.
you had a name after that band though. You could have probably gone with some. You probably had some other bands you could have gone with more, more popular rock bands that could you could have just kind of sat in with and because your legacy with the Kreuzen and kind of gone another way. And
Well,
clearly your history is you more
as with
creative.
most drummers, I was working with half a dozen bands at a time for a while. So yeah, that was a lot of rehearsing. Keep up my chops.
How did you change from you lived from Milwaukee right to Amsterdam? Probably what
Yep.
90s, 2000s moved over. What an interesting
Moved
move.
over at the end of 1998. Die Kreuzen had played here. Killdozer had played here. And when I was playing with Paul Kay and the Weathermen, he had a contract with a record label that was over here. So we came over and did a bunch of shows and would work out of Amsterdam. And as one does, I got to know it and love it. And also it seemed like there was always something waiting for me over here. Every time I came, there was somebody saying, "Hey, join this band," or "Hey, I got this work for you," or "Hey, I got this place you can live." And at one point, we threw everything in and came over here. And it turned out to be true. My wife and I, she's a chef, and we found out that the cafe restaurant at the music venue, the Melkweg here, world famous Melkweg, they
Mm-hmm.
needed somebody to run their cafe restaurant, and we made a proposal, and they liked the idea that okay, she's a business partner and she's a chef, and I'm a business partner and a musician, and then we did that for 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That must have
in
been a little
fact,
change for you. Was it a
that
change or similar? Or both?
in many ways similar. Yeah, some ways a change, but a lot of fun being in this music venue with several different halls and tons of bands coming through, and
Yeah.
sometimes old friends, sometimes new friends. Yeah, it was quite a scene. We got a little bit of a name for ourselves, and did that for 17 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Working in a restaurant, running a restaurant is long hours, boy, oh boy, I'll tell you that.
I equate that like people say that their dream job is to like I'm gonna retire up in a restaurant or a food something or other. I'm like, man, that's like being the president. Like in 4 years, you age 20 years. You know what I mean? It's
We aged, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you guys evolve into now? Are you kind of at this point pulling it
Uh,
back or
we're
just
uh, we we stopped with that and started running a bed and breakfast. And now this
oh
is a little bit more like a semi-retirement. We've just got a little two-bedroom bed and breakfast. Well, we don't serve breakfast. We stopped that right away. We call it a bed and beverage. So we put a couple of beers in the refrigerator and call it done, and everyone thinks it's great. And
because
that's right
waking up
here
for
in the center.
strangers to make food for them, it's gotta be the worst ever. I don't like making food for my own family.
We really decided that was one thing we didn't want to do. There's just too many places right next door, even that can serve better food than we can put together. So we quite enjoy it. We put it out on Airbnb, and aside from a certain pandemic that we're all still struggling to emerge from,
Yeah.
it's been going great guns.
Well, I'll put the link up so people can check it out. And if they're in
I'll
the
make
area,
sure.
I encourage everybody to go check you out, support you, man. You
One
know?
a couple of people, one guy especially, because I've got a little plaque hanging up there that somebody gave me, and one guy recognized the band. He said, "Oh, great band!" And it took him a little while to figure out when I said that was my band that I meant no, I played in that
Oh,
band. But
really?
that's just one guy in 5 years. So,
I can't believe
but it
that.
was
So do
pretty
people
cool.
recognize you at all?
Um, Not really, no. But it's
Interesting. It could
40
be good
years
and bad.
later,
Like,
man.
yeah, but the internet now and people are really fans and the world's changed a little bit.
It
You
does
know,
happen sometimes. It does happen sometimes.
I'm not talking Beatlemania, just people know how to look up something and Google it and see. I mean, there's like, you can take 10 minutes and look up your stuff, or, that's why I'm not going to sit here and, kick out the exact specs with you because people didn't do that. You know what I mean? It's kind of just more important to hear from you as a person and get your own little flavor on moments. But they could find it, what are you doing? Like, so now that you're kind of got the bed breakfast, are you still doing a little bit more music though? Is it like still talking to the guys in the band, doing your other projects?
I haven't really played much lately. I really should. There are rehearsal spaces here in Amsterdam that I can just go to. And of course, setting up drums in an apartment is not too cool, but these rehearsal spaces are right there ready to go. I did play with a friend of mine for a while, a guy named Eric, another guy named Sean, a guy named Roy, and another guy named Paul. We put out a bunch of songs, but that was a little challenging. I was working the restaurant. It's very difficult.
Oh yeah, that could be a lot more. I mean, I can see the pace of doing the restaurant is got to be similar to being in a band though. But now you may have the time. You may need to get your chops
Maybe I
back
have the
out there.
time. Maybe I have the time. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be
We'll
hard being such a
see.
creative person to not be doing it, or you're just so burnt out and tired. You kind of
A little of both. Although I'm recovering. I'm recovering. I'm kind of thinking about doing it again.
let me ask you this: a lot of people that play music are either like super cooks, painters, artists. Do you have another super thing you do also that
No,
you,
I've always pointed out that it's a good thing I was a pretty good drummer because I don't have any other artistic talents as far as I
which
can
isn't a bad
tell.
thing because most people can't even do one thing, so it's not bad.
I'm
It's just
satisfied.
I always discover someone's like, no, I'm actually a so and so chef. I'm like, really? Or
I
it's
can keep
pretty.
myself alive, but it's my wife that's the chef.
You sound exactly like me. Well, this has been awesome. I want to congratulate. I think was it the actually, you guys got an award. It was a while back, but I think for talking about props for your band, was it Milwaukee? Right? It was like the Milwaukee Music, was it Hall of Fame, or how was it called for Die Kreuzen with
The
it was a while
Wisconsin
back.
Music Hall of Fame. Yeah,
Yes, thank you, thank
they
you, thank you.
they
That is
put it.
awesome.
That is pretty cool, I gotta say. Yeah, right there with Liberace and Les Paul.
Which it sounds as silly as it sounds, all very influential in
I
the world
love
of
it.
music. No,
I'm into
I'm
it.
saying, but like when you say those names, you're like, what? You know, but if you really sit back and look at it, it
Hmm.
makes sense because the impact has been pretty powerful.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. That was quite an honor. Still knocked out by that one.
that's really good. Now, I imagine any of your past bands, you're not going to be doing anything with them probably at any point, or any kind of even re-releases or one-offs.
No, no, we did do a couple of reunion shows with Die Kreuzen,
Yeah,
and that was a lot of fun. But that at this point was almost 10 years ago already. Our friend Jay Tiller sat in on guitar because Brian couldn't make it, but Jay was really part of the family, so that was a lot of
yeah.
fun to have Jay in there with us. Jay from Couch Flambeau, if you're familiar with Couch
Mhm.
Flambeau out of Milwaukee. Uh, Fuckface did some reunion shows, but sadly, Dave Rake has died. So without Dave on great squealing, snaky guitar, without him, it would not be the same.
Right, which is
And
understandable.
sadly, of Paul Kay and the Weathermen, Paul Kay died a while back. So that's not going to happen anymore either. So we'll see. But
Mortality sucks. I mean, I don't mean for like big plans. I'm just talking like because you're still friends with a lot of these guys, and it's fun just to play like one-offs. If I was in a band with you, I'd want to come to Amsterdam and do a gig. You know, have a fun show, see the sights. You know what I mean? It just sounds like a fun jam with some friends and have fun.
well, it certainly is a lot of fun. Yeah, it certainly is a lot of
You
fun.
know, that's really what it comes down to. I'm not looking for world domination anymore. You guys already made your mark. Um, Eric, I want to thank you for being on the show and sharing a little bit and giving some time. I know it's always weird dipping back into the past or talking about things, but
Well, this is a
you know,
lot of fun, and I think it's really cool that you reached out to me. Thanks so much.
well, I want to thank you for being on the show. And everybody,
Okay.
we've mentioned a lot of different artists. Take your paper, pens, whatever, your phones, and Google. Write all these names down. Check them out. I'm gonna put the link for his B&B, and I'll put we can check out the band if you're not aware of them. And if you are, still go listen to them more and realize the difference. You'll see the influence, and you're very modest, so your influence is appreciated in what you've done in music in the years, and at a high note. Thanks, man.
Okay, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.